Welcome to the True Body Intelligence Podcast. My name is Christopher Lee Maher, and I'm your host. In the True Body Intelligence Podcast, we're going to be discussing how your body relates to sleep, energy, mood, performance, injury, its relationship with food, with daily drugs, with sex, so that you can get good quality information and you can make a decision from an informed place. Without the information, you continue to keep making the same decisions. And if what you're looking for is to get the most out of this life experience, I hope you tune in often. Welcome to part 1 of episode 1. We're going to be getting into the what and the how of True Body Intelligence.
Christopher, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm a little nervous. I had no idea I was going to be nervous. I was in the bathroom and brushing my teeth, and I was like, oh, I feel like a little something in my stomach. I haven't had that feeling since I was running track and field.
Maybe it means something big is happening.
Yeah, I think definitely something big is happening. You know, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to serve. For me, you know, I'm at this point in my life where I've had the success that I wanted. I already created the kind of impact that I wanted. And I fly around a lot because my clients live in different places in the world. I teach in different places in the world, and I have to go through airports, and I walk through airports and I see people who are suffering constantly. They're hobbling, their posture is, you can tell they're in pain. Let's put it that way. They're uncomfortable, right? Their bellies are big. I can tell they're swollen. I'm looking at their food choices and I'm realizing that the only thing they're lacking is information, but also the inspiration to be able to make different choices, right? And over these next few episodes, if we can give them at least a decent download that they can relate to, right? I think they might be able to take a risk. And the risk would be for them to take heartfelt action to their own benefit, because it's very easy to stay the way that you've always been, right? That's very simple. All you got to do is get up and do Wednesday like you did Tuesday. Do Thursday like you did Wednesday. And then it's, you know, that first step is the most important. And I think if people are going to be spending their time, they're going to be spending their energy, and they're going to be spending their resources because personal development and growth has become a much bigger thing than it was. You know, when I was young, no one said the word personal development. If you were developing yourself, it's because you were some kind of performer, right? You either wanted to get a raise at your job, or you're an athlete, or you're in music or theater. Everything was a performance. But now people want to develop themselves because they have this realization that there's more available to them in this life, right? And
would you say that this is almost like we paid attention to the outside because that's the first environment we had to learn how to maneuver through and learn how to operate in. And now that we have enough comfort, now, okay, we can afford ourselves. Okay, now let's go within and see what we can actually develop and evolve in ourselves. And so, by the way, just to frame this conversation, we're doing this because you want to share more of your knowledge with a wider array of people.
Sure.
And so we're going to have these conversations to clarify some things that might give some people tremendous benefit.
For me, the most important thing is that people know where I'm coming from and what my motivation is. We live on a planet. I mean, everyone who's going to pay attention to this is listening, knows that everywhere they look, there's a dumpster fire somewhere with a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, a lot of distrust. And what I want people to know is there's no need to focus on any of that. If you focus on the inside and you get your inside right, then what happens is every life that you impact, their life changes because you've changed, right? So everyone has a sphere of influence. Even if you have a sphere of influence of one, all you have is a pet that you relate with. But the majority of people have children, they have siblings, they have parents, they have coworkers, there are coaches, or they're a student being coached, and they have colleagues and teammates, and regardless of what they're doing, people have a large reach. And if everyone focuses internally on what they can do for themselves, how they can show up better, they can make better food choices, they can make better sleep choices, they're going to be more energized. And when people are energized, they're impassioned. And when they're impassioned, they have that spark they need to be able to create the thing that they've been dying to create that's sitting in the back of their mind. I mean, every human has 10 good ideas, right? But how many of us actually take the time, have the energy to express the effort to make that a reality? And so I want people to know that there's a different way, right? You can go towards the inside rather than being focused and disappointed on what's going on the outside. Because if you let that deter you, it's going to decrease your motivation, because everywhere you look, you're going to have proof that, well, things simply don't work, right? But once you get things working right on the inside, meaning your posture's good, your energy's abundant, your mind is quiet, your emotions are grounded, opportunities are abundant for you everywhere, you're able to manifest at will, what's going to happen? You're going to be inspiring and motivating other people to take risk. And what's the risk? The risk is to be as great as you can be, to be as positive as you can be, to be as honest as you can be, to be as clear as you can be, to be firmly rooted in reality as deep as you can. And if you can be in reality, you can make very good choices because your mind is clear. And when the mind is clear, it's easy to understand your own motivation. You know, I'm a former U.S. Navy SEAL. So when I was in SEAL training, you know, I like to relate to guys. So I'm naturally investigative. So I ask a bunch of questions. And what I noticed is everyone had a different motivation. Some guys were there because they wanted to prove something to their dad. Other guys were there because their grandfather was in the military. Other guys wanted to shoot cool guns. Other guys wanted to jump out of planes. Other guys wanted to address their fear of heights. Other guys wanted a challenge mentally. Other guys wanted a challenge physically. Other guys wanted a challenge emotionally. And so everyone has their own motivation. What matters for me is that you get clear in your own motivation, because who is here to tell you what's correct for you? Yet, without the information that I'm going to give you, how are you going to be able to make better choices without understanding this information? And this information is crucial, because as you use true body intelligence to reduce your lifetime accumulated stress load, your anxiety drops to the floor. Your fear drops out of the bucket. Your excitement gets amplified. Your mind gets supremely quiet. When your mind is quiet, it's easy to hear your heart. It's easy to follow your soul's calling. And so true body intelligence is here for everyone, because I believe that every human alive should have the opportunity to experience who it is they really are at their core. And how are you going to know that when you're living in fear, you're being motivated by anxiety, your mind is overcrowded, and your body's uncomfortable, right? Because when people are uncomfortable, what do they want to do? They want to tune out, right? When their mind is running rampantly, right? What do they want to do? They want to tune out. When their energy is in the tank, they're exhausted. They want to find that excessive amount of stimulation to overcome that feeling of tiredness, even though they know it's going to make them more exhausted the next day.
Well, they might be in denial about it.
And that's okay.
Would you frame true body intelligence, the true body intelligence system, as a system that helps you, well, helps the body to develop its natural intelligence to be able to remove any obstacle on its way to its true potential?
1000%. So in this work, in these systems, what's most important is that they know that there's a way out of whatever they're dealing with. And what I mean is, let's say a person's a pathological liar, and they find it difficult to tell the truth because they're fearing they might be rejected or harmed or ignored or
Brushed off as boring.
yeah, right? And so I think people are going to do whatever they can to survive the situation that they're in. And true body intelligence wants to remove those barriers that keep them from being authentic, because all human survival strategies were made up by a precognitive mind. What does that mean? That means a mind that really has no perception of reality. Right? Think about it. I tell people this all the time. There's 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids that believe a fat man in a red and white suit is coming down a chimney, and they don't even have a chimney in their apartment, to drink mama's milk and eat the cookies she made and give presents to someone they don't know. Right? So when you're in a precognitive state of function, you don't understand reality. And then we're making up whatever we need to in order to survive our circumstances. And so every child has difficulty. So a lot of times, I see people like, oh, I didn't really have any trauma. Every child has trauma. You just don't remember what it's like to be a child, right? You don't remember what it's like to go through the unknown. You know what it's like to feel your father's voice when he's upset. You don't know what it's like to feel your mom's mood when she's in fear or confused. You don't remember what it's like to feel your brother screaming in the back of the car because he wants his bottle for 25 minutes and your parents are on a long drive. Like, we just don't remember how stressful all these things are. And then we do whatever we can to develop a strategy to be able to avoid punishment, rejection, humiliation, discomfort, and violence. Because children do believe that they can easily be harmed. And so they lose their own voice. Yeah, and they can. And they lose their connection to their own voice. They lose their connection to their uniqueness, because rather than that being fostered, they're being reminded by the parents to be quiet. Just dad's had a long day at work and he's stressed. So you should stop exploring your environment safely because he might get upset. And so children start altering their behavior at a very young age. And once we alter that behavior, we start reinforcing those neural pathways. Now our brain is completely cognized away from risk and towards safety. And then we become risk averse. And as we become risk averse, we disappear. And what true body intelligence is here to do is to help you to be able to feel safe and comfortable and grounded enough so that you can take a risk to become who it is you really are and do what it is you want in the world and create whatever's in your heart.
So we're going to go through different ways by which the true body intelligence is doing that, the system. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about what made you develop it, how it all started?
Yeah, history is important. When I was in school, history was my favorite subject. And so, I've had a long time to think and feel into and discover why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And this all came about because I think at the root for me, I wanted to be seen and recognized and valued. My mom, she took her life when she was 29 years old. I was 7. My little brother was 3.5. And when you don't have a mom around nurturing
Take that sentence again, just so I can cut to it.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a mom?
Yeah. And when you don't have a mom around nurturing you, reminding you every day that you're special, giving you a little kiss on the top of your head, buying you a little sweet treat, like the things that moms do, the ways in which they nurture that help us feel valued, then it's like there's this void that's created inside of you and something's missing. And, you know, I went to a probably well-endowed boarding school in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And although they gave me opportunities, they gave me rules and regulations, what I was missing was the nurturing, right? There were no hugs. House parents didn't hug the kids, right? There was no physical affection. And I think part of my driver in life was to be able to be seen, to get recognized and get valued so that somebody might step in and discover that I was worth their nurturing, right? And I think that was probably its subconscious motivator for me. But the conscious motivator for me is when you've been in pain, whether it's emotional, I've had that, physical, I've had that, energetic, I've had that, spiritual, I've had that. When you get on the other side of something, I know for me, I want to share, right? I'm transpersonal in nature, so I want to go into people's lives and I want to use my experiences to be able to elevate their experiences. And any bit of wisdom, any bit of love, any bit of care, any bit of affection, any bit of knowledge that I can impart on them motivates me. It inspires me. It gives me joy in my heart. It gives me motivation in my spirit. It gives me energy in my body. And it keeps me focused on what I feel are really the important things in life, which is to go through an experience that's difficult and then share how you got through that experience from a heartfelt position so that others can then have the opportunity to get to a space where they see you living, right? Like, I want everyone to have a life with a view. I have a life with a view. I live on the ocean front. I get to see a beautiful ocean every single day. You know, when I travel, I typically pick a hotel that has a nice view. I want other people to have a life with a view. If I'm eating good food, I want people to have an opportunity to eat good food. And one of the things that I picked up from Hershey School, which I thought was very good, is everyone got the same thing. So if I got this pair of sneakers, all the other kids got this pair of sneakers. So I got this kind of suit jacket, all the other kids got an opportunity to have that suit jacket. So I'm very universal in that sense. I want everyone to have an opportunity to have really nice things. Nice view, solid education, a comfortable place to sleep, good food in their body, amazing interpersonal relationships that motivate them to become a better person, and a powerful, intense relationship with whatever they call their co-creator, whether they call it the universe or source or God or Muhammad or Jesus, like whatever they call, I don't care. That's irrelevant to me. Like, once you reach a certain state of development, you realize that the most important things is that people are using whatever's in front of them to become the best version of themselves, and then sharing that with others.
So thank you for sharing. So this is your, these are your motives.
Yeah.
And how, from having these motives in life and having your experiences, how did it come about that all of a sudden you realized that you can actually help people directly? And then from there, how did you decide to develop this into an actual method versus just kind of talking to people?
I think the moment that I had change in my body, so background, after I got out of the SEAL teams, I went into training. I had an Olympic goal, an Olympic dream that never manifested. because I was with injury constantly. And I had a lot of frustration, a lot of agitation, a lot of irritation. And once I started to get out of some discomfort, I started to share that with people, and they started sharing about their discomfort. And so I wanted to use all the information that I had to be able to help them align to somebody who would help them get out of the pain that I was in. And once I got out of that discomfort permanently, then I realized, oh, you mean people never really have to live with this forever. This is only a transitional state for them to be in. Okay, now I'm really motivated. So I basically just recruited all my friends, anyone who actually would listen. I was like screaming from the top of the mountain, go this way, go left, go left, go left, go left. And then people started getting results, and then more people called, and then more results came, and then more people called, and then more results came. Then people started texting, because we started texting. So then texts came in, and then emails came in. And before I knew it, I was only focused the majority of my day on helping other people. But my initial motivation was to get out of pain myself, because I had a goal that was bigger than me, which was get to the Olympic trials. And even though that never happened, I got something much better in return. I got a body that works. I got a mind that works. I got emotions that are grounded. I got excitement and access to passion when I want it. You know, every part of me is in a very powerful, fluid state. And I get to choose in what I want to participate in. And if I don't like the outcome, let's say I'm on a 14-hour flight, and I wake up the next morning, my back's a little stiff, I can get up in the morning and literally within 3 seconds, well, okay, maybe like 10 seconds, I'm in and out of that discomfort like that.
So let's talk about this part for a second, because this might even sound, for some people, too good to be true, hard to believe, that you actually, as a human, don't necessarily have to have the daily pain that people experience throughout their lives, and obviously also gets exacerbated by age and all of that stuff. So you're saying, no, you can get to a state where you're pain-free.
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay, so tell us more about that, because that is a huge, people, I think one of the biggest impediments for a lot of people to start is that, all the limiting beliefs that's impossible. This definitely falls in the category of something that I would assume a lot of people would consider impossible. So not only are you saying it's not impossible, you're saying it's very doable to reach that state in your lifetime. And so please tell us more about that, because that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you came to True Body Intelligence and the only reason why you were tuning in is because you wanted to get out of discomfort and you wanted to learn a few things that would help you do that, I think that's a solid motivator. I read an article. It was either Newsweek or Life magazine, one of these magazines. And it said that 46.7% or 46.5% of all Americans had reported back pain. I thought 330 million people, almost 50% of them have reported back pain. I started to think about that, and I said, oh, I get it. Americans are always sitting in the same position.
It was just 46%? I would assume it would be more like 98%.
Yeah, reported was key term there, right? Reported back pain. A lot of people have back pain. They just deal with it. They just suffer from it. They never tell anyone because, 33% of the population is transpersonal in nature, and transpersonal people hardly ever let other people into their painful experiences, right? So if you're tuning in to True Body Intelligence, because your motivation is to get out of discomfort, and you're going to tune in and listen and take some instruction and, go to the website and get some more information and take some risk, I'm willing to tell you that if you were to do everything that I told you over a certain period of time, your discomfort, your stiffness in your body would decrease. And then the beautiful thing is we teach you. So now we're teaching you to fish rather than being the ones who's working on you. Because the truth is, any guide, healer, coach in the world, we can only help you put your body in a favorable position, but the body has to heal itself. And the question is, what's keeping your body from healing itself? What's keeping your body from growing and evolving and expanding into a higher evolved expression of itself? Simple. Tension. Well, what creates tension? Unresolved stress. What creates stress? A limiting belief. What causes a limiting belief? A familial fear that was passed on from generation to generation to generation. And so the beautiful thing about true body intelligence is I've mapped and understand the algorithm to create pain, but also the algorithm to create comfort. And all you have to do is reverse engineer it. And it's really, really, really simple.
So basically you understand exactly what's the real cause for the pain in the body, and then you just reverse the process.
I reverse the process. I understand what causes the real pain in the mind. You reverse the process.
Can you say a few words about how you reverse the process, even in general terms?
I think what'll happen is as we go along, we'll get into that stuff deeper, because when you dive into that, you got to really dive in. Like you got to get a full breath. And, we're in part 1, right?
Okay. Sure.
So in part 1, we're giving you the idea of what true body intelligence is, how it got started, and a few footnotes to maybe inspire you to be able to come back and listen again.
How many years have you been doing this officially?
Let's see, since 2001, June 7th, 2001.
So 23 years.
Yeah.
A little bit over 23 years. So no, actually exactly almost 23.
Yeah, almost exactly 23 years.
So that's quite an experience. And what would you say are the 2 or 3 most common issues from which all the other ones stem, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. So if we go with like unresolved stress loads, they evolve into the basics, right? Poor sleep patterns. Okay. Inconsistent energy. Okay.
What does that mean?
Inconsistent energy means that a person's going along in their day and all of a sudden they feel exhausted.
But that's some kind of an end process, right?
Yeah.
That's not the reason.
No, the reason is the same in all cases. Unresolved stress load.
Oh, so it's always that.
It's always accumulated unresolved stress.
I see.
Which manifests as tension. The tension turns into some level of distortion, right? Some people, their distortion shows up psychologically. Some people, their distortion shows up emotionally, right? When it shows up emotionally, you're going to have a ton of anxiety. When it shows up psychologically, you're going to be dealing with a ton of fear. When it shows up physically, you're going to be dealing with a ton of pain. And when it shows up spiritually, you're going to lose your energy, right? Because
all energy
comes from the spiritual world.
That's interesting.
Right. So when you're unethical, when you're immoral, when you're disintegrous, when you're without value, right? So what's going to happen? When you're acting without principle, you're reducing your energy because you're also reducing your self-esteem. And when you reduce your self-esteem, you reduce your reason for living.
So would you say that about the energy thing, some people would say, I know somebody who's like really full of themselves and they look very confident, but I know that they're lying all the time or whatever. So would you say that there's a deeper part of you? Some people call it the soul, some people call it whatever, the higher self, but there's a part of you that always knows the true value. And when you, let's say, lie, that value decreases and necessarily your energy will go down and you would have to supplement with like either substances or something else.
Yeah, I think when you misrepresent yourself, I'm going to take the word lie off of it because it's too heavy, because we have no idea what the person went through and why they're applying that strategy, right? And then lying has a negative connotation. So I just want to say, what's the reason this person is misrepresenting themselves? And it's going to be fear, but there is a cost for that misrepresentation. And the cost is disconnection, right? Because see, what happens is if I misrepresent myself to you, when we're connecting from a false place. And now I have to come up with energy to cover up the misrepresentation to keep you hooked in or locked in to where I'm coming from. But at the same time, that is pushing you away from me. And I have to spend more energy to keep you tuned in, right? So there's a cost. And the question is, does the person want to continue to keep paying the cost? And at some point, they realize no, because guess what? They're tired of tuning out with substances, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, marijuana, pharmaceuticals, recreationals, okay? They want to be more present. And when you get more present, you have more energy. But when you're less present, you're more absent because of your misrepresentation, regardless of what the motivation is, right? I think for me, and what people have to understand about true body intelligence is we rarely do excessive judgment or criticism. That's never going to be my job, because an individual's relationship with this reality is based on their environment. And we don't know what they made up as children, right? So we have to stay locked in, motivating, loving them unconditionally, keeping an open space, but simultaneously questioning their motivations to see what comes up to the surface, and then allowing them to feel safe. Because as they feel safe, they're then going to share what's going on a deeper level. And now we got an opportunity to get free of something that has their heart too constricted, right? That has their kidneys too stressed, that has their brain too constricted. And once we calm down inside, they feel comfortable relating outside with reality rather than some made up projection in order to get love, affection, attention, and consideration. Yet when you're being misrepresenting yourself, the love, the affection, and the consideration you're getting, it's false anyway. So in true body intelligence, true, all we really want you to do is to be in truth, which is your truth, right? No one can tell you your truth. No one here on the planet has earned that right to be able to dictate to you what it is you need to do according to their perception, right? Everyone's an individual, and though we're all connected through oneness, we have to create enough space inside of ourselves so that we have enough space to accept everyone's choices and then be able to give them love or awareness or affection and consideration where they're disjointed, where they're fragmented, where they're without consciousness.
So when they pay attention, they get the courage and the space to just go back to who they truly are. And then there's no more constant tension. They don't have to keep exerting energy doing a thing.
For sure. Because what's true body intelligence for? It's to create a successful pattern interrupt into the pattern that has an aspect of themselves cycling down rather than cycling up. And all we want to do in true body intelligence, is to teach you to cycle up. And then once we get that energy moving in that direction, there's no stopping it. The challenge is we live on a planet where the majority of people, their energy is fragmented severely, and they have no idea.
They don't even know that something's off.
They have no idea something's off.
You mentioned the daily drugs, which is the thing that we're going to discuss more in depth in the next segment. There's certain substances, even daily substances like we all do, like coffee and alcohol and things like that, and marijuana, whatever, that ultimately it's like a crutch, like you rely on this thing, right? There is no way that one can have a healthy relationship with one of these substances. Would you say that it's always the case that you would encourage ultimately to move away from all of them? Or is there a way to have some kind of a healthy relationship with them?
That was like 10 questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to bring you back to episode 2. And in episode 2, we're going to get into part 2. We're going to get into the daily drugs and then give you a broader, deeper education. But that was a perfect question for all of you to consider and spend a little time going over what your relationship is with the daily acceptable drugs. And now you're wondering, what are the daily acceptable drugs? Well, guess what? Now you have to tune into part 2. Thank you for tuning in to today's content. This will be made available in its full form of everything we put together for you at truebodyintelligence.com. And at truebodyintelligence.com, you can tune into my book, Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's unique journey to inner freedom and outer peace. And there I will teach you at a much deeper level. And this will be really, really, really good reference tool for you. Plus, the audiobook has an opportunity to allow you to start the program already by purchasing the one with the energetic integrations, and that will help you get started. All of this content will also be available on all major platforms: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube.